accident, you know it's no walk in the park. Car repairs, medical bills, and lost time from work all add up. And if the insurance company isn't paying their fair share, you have to cover the rest, even if it wasn't your fault. That's why you need an advocate. Call us today, and we'll do everything we can to get you moving again. Come on.
You deserve clear, risk-free advice to help get you back on your feet. You deserve an advocate.
This is The Monty Show, the truth in sports talk streaming. When you want unbiased opinions about your favorite team without the spin, all you have to do is find The Monty Show, streaming live and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube. And now, here's Monty.
Hey, The Monty Show, live on your YouTube machine, July 18th, 2024. Is it the day that the College Football Super League begins to take shape? Very well could be. As we have talked about for a significant amount of time on the show, it seems like every day we get a new update on what the College Football Super League or the changing face of college football looks like. It was interesting yesterday. Ross Dellinger let go of an article where he talked about how the powers that be in college football, Charlie Baker, the commissioner essentially of the NCAA, the president, and the Power Four conferences have made this deal where they are going to break away into their own tier, which is not new. We've known this for several months. Charlie Baker himself talked about this and proposed this pretty much from day one of him taking the job. And now we're starting to see that move into reality. And I think it's absolutely the right decision to make. Are the G5 schools, the other, 320 something universities, going to be happy about this? I would think about 300 of them will be. Because what we're talking about and what Yahoo Sports detailed yesterday is a division for the P4 that simply pays more, because you have to remember revenue sharing is a thing, and universities will have to begin sharing $22 million with their athletes on an annual basis. That's a lot of bread. If you are in the middle of nowhere and you are a perennial basketball school and you just happen to have a football program, that's a lot of money. And I think that's why you see the G5 is the G5. And I understand universities in the better G5 leagues, the Mountain West specifically, and usually this raises the dander of the Fresno States and the UNLVs of the world. Hey, that's all well and good, Boise State. You can get upset about it. But the question is, do you want to give away $22 million a year to your athletes? And I think overwhelmingly, most of the universities in the G5 are going to say, no, thanks, we'll play down here. And I think that's ultimately what this comes down to. But I also think you have to ask yourself, is this the right move? Because you are, by giving the P4 all of this power, Jake, aren't you essentially saying that you really you don't matter if you're one of the other P4 leagues?
Yeah, I mean, basically what you're saying is that you don't want it's almost like, hey, we don't really want the trouble of having to try to compete with the power conferences, and we don't want to deal with revenue sharing. We don't want to have to play in sort of this, a lot of people would call it a messy situation for the power conferences with the money and how everything's kind of working with the portal and NIL, almost saying, at the G5 level, we would rather stay in more of an amateur feel, where it's a traditional, hey, you're going to school, but maybe you happen to play basketball or you happen to play football, but you're not someone who is going to go and chase the league, or like they want more of that feel, because they're not operating with these huge commercial advertising opportunities. They're not operating with the amount of money that these power conferences and schools within those power conferences are. And I'm completely fine with that. I think it's always been kind of a clunky sort of, round peg going into a square hole type situation when you're sitting here saying that Georgia is playing in the same financial landscape as a Boise State or a smaller school. And it doesn't mean that these smaller schools are bad or lesser or somehow, diminished. It just basically is saying, yeah, we probably shouldn't have these juggernaut of a university that's got 50,000 students at it playing in the same pool with a school that has 10,000 students and is way smaller and isn't competing on the same level. And so I think this was an inevitability. We were always going to get to a place where we needed some separation of classes. And I think it's really smart for the sport. And I think it puts the decision back on the kid on some level to say, hey, what pool do you want to play in? How competitive do you want to be in your given sport? Are you someone that wants to play at the highest level of college football or college basketball? Then yeah, you're probably going into this tier. If you're someone that knows you're probably not going to be a professional athlete, but you'd love to play some college athletics in addition to getting an education, you're going to go over here. And I think it's just fine. It's absolutely just fine.
Yeah, I think I totally disagree. I think it is one of these situations where it's understanding who you are and where you are. And I think sometimes these G5 schools, and I think the exact number is 328, tend to confuse themselves. And their fans tend to confuse themselves with, Alabama. Can certain G5 schools compete with Alabama in football? I'm sure they can on a one-off occasional basis, but you have to ask yourself, if you are one of these non-P4 schools, are you going to opt into revenue sharing $22 million a year with your athletes? And my guess is the large majority of universities will not opt into that. My guess is that this is simply going to come down to a dollars and cents argument. And if you are a fan of a G5 school, I think you need to understand who you are and where you are, because if you are Fresno State and if you are San Diego State is a very good example of this, you don't have the financial resources that the bottom half of the Big Ten, the bottom half of the Big 12, you don't have the resources at San Diego State that somebody like a Oak State, like a Texas Tech, like a BYU has. You don't have those resources. You're not opting into that, and that's for the better. And I start looking at universities like the Wyomings of the world, the Dakota schools, these small schools where you're going to see an athletic department that says, hey, we're here to educate people, and we also compete in sports. That's a very big difference from a P4 university that says, hey, you don't even have to go to class. In a lot of cases, when you're a basketball player, you're a one and done. You don't even have to go to class your freshman year. You're going to show up, you're going to live high on the hog, and then you're going to go to the NBA draft. That's the reality of it. You're never going to get grade checked. You're never, you have to understand that these universities, a lot of them are just a warehouse of building boys into men physically. You just have to understand that. Is school involved? Yes. I think in a lot of cases, most cases it is. It's in every case involved if you're one of those 328 other schools. There's no other way to argue that. And I think that's really where the rubber meets the road. We can sit here and we can romanticize the Statue of Liberty and Boise State. And the reality is Boise State and Utah took two very different paths after that moment in time. When you had Utah as the original BCS buster, they went to the Pac-12, they took their lumps, and now they're a national powerhouse. Where's Boise? Still in Boise, still in the G5, have never been able to get themselves to the P5, now P4 level. And I think it very much is just simply a line of demarcation. I think that's a very good example of it.
Yeah, and that's why I say, like, I just think that we were, with the direction that the power conferences are heading, with how much money they're going to be looking to try and make because of this revenue, sharing situation that we have at play. It makes it so that the smaller school can't compete at the same level. And it shouldn't be, because I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, well, then why would you want to go to Boise State, or why would you want to go to this school or that school? And it's not really about that per se. It's really about making sure that we're not asking too much of somebody who's only making $1 at their school when Alabama's making $20. Like, that's not a fair competition. So I just think that a lot of people, want to look at this meeting that took place between Charlie Baker and these four commissioners of their power conferences and say, oh, well, the power conferences are trying to do more shady stuff. And it's not shady at all. It's what they're doing is trying to smooth this out for everybody. Because the other thing is, it doesn't help the power conferences to have all this drama around money. Nobody wants to be in court. Nobody wants to be, getting sued or in trouble. All they're trying to do is recoup the $22 million that they're now going to have to split with the athletes. So that's why I say, like, I don't know that this is necessarily a bad thing like a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of people are talking about. I think that this was a necessary step that had to take place.
You're talking about a very small financial pot in the G5. You're talking about, what's the average athletic department budget at a P4 university? $150 million? How many G5 universities are playing at $15 to $20 million? Most of them. So when you say to them, hey, yeah, you got to pay that NIL lawsuit. Yeah, you got to pay your fair share on that. Also, you're going to have to opt into this $22 million a year in revenue sharing. They can't afford it. And I think this comes back to who you are and where you are. And it's universities like Oregon State, Washington State, who now, again, find themselves in no man's land. You're in no man's land. If you are Oregon State and you are Washington State, can you afford $22 million on top of your NIL lawsuit payment?
No way.
That's a tough nut to crack, dude. It is a tough nut to crack. And I think it's one of those things where you just have to understand that this is, and I don't know this is the haves and the have-nots. This is Beverly Hills versus Compton. This is, like this, it's just the reality of where we are in college sports. I don't know how you fix it. But I'm also the guy who believes I don't think that the G5 should have access to the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I don't believe that. If you are on par, you need to show that financially, in recruiting, in education. Like, you need to, and I use Utah, the University of Utah, as an example because of the jump that they took and the mountain that they've climbed. Has BYU traveled the same path? Not close. BYU is not grown athletically. BYU has resources beyond our comprehension because of the church. Do they deploy those resources? They don't. Have they competed for Rose Bowls and put themselves in a position to be in the national championship conversation? They haven't. They haven't. And that's because they were never in a P5 conference. And now that they are, you're going to watch them sputter and struggle, hopefully for 2, maybe 3 years. And then in 2 years from now, they're competing at a high level in the Big 12. We'll see. But you look at Utah struggled for what, a decade?
Yeah, they grinded.
I mean, it is not easy. And so, again, we come back to these conversations about, should we be excluding the G5? Should we? I don't know. Are we? Yeah. And really, it's the G5 is excluding themselves, because the rubber will meet the road when these universities opt in or not into the $22 million revenue sharing.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I mean, if you can't afford to revenue share at $22 million a year, then you shouldn't have access to the college football playoff. Now, if you want to, if your rebuttal to that is, hey, we need to create a college football playoff for the lower tier, I'm fine with that. If you want to have a separate thing for folks who don't want to opt in to play with the big boys, cool. That's fine. I'm good with that. I think that would we've been talking about that for how long now, right? Like how, the lower school, the lower, financial schools that make less money need to have their own championship. We see it all across sports, right? You've got the minor leagues and you've got the major leagues. There's nothing wrong with it. And I think that will probably happen once this whole structure gets officially put out.
But how do you go to somebody like Boise? Again, I'll just use anybody in the Mountain West and say to them, okay, if you want to play at this tier, you got to have let's say $140, $130, $125 million budget for athletics. How does that work in Boise, Idaho? How does that work in Fresno, California? How does that work in Logan, Utah? In Colorado Springs? At Colorado State? How does that work? And the answer is it doesn't work. I can't find a way where in our current climate and environment, the state school in San Diego is going to be able to say, yeah, we'll allocate $140 million to our athletic budget. 150 million. Like, I have trouble believing that.
Yeah, and what's interesting too about the state schools in the G5 is their level of aggressiveness is different seemingly by each example. So like we know that San Diego State tried to get into the Pac-12 and we saw how that situation played out. Obviously, we've got it going the other way with Oregon State and Washington State being forced to take a step back because of the situation. And so that's why I say people shouldn't be forced to play at the revenue sharing level. We should not force the small school to do that. What we should do is give them that choice. And if they want to make that choice and that commitment financially as a school, then okay, cool. Now you get access to certain benefits. Because I feel like the more we talk about it and the more we go through it, this just sounds like a regular life situation. Hey, if you want this certain benefit, if you want access to this, pool of perks, if you will, you have to pay more money. I mean, how many times in life do we hear that? Right? Like this is nothing new for us as everyday people. Yet for the college football system, this is like a huge shift in how the college football system does business. And I'm curious, to your point, like what G5 is going to, be really aggressive? Who is going to make that jump and try to play with the big boys?
Do you understand that Ohio State's athletic expenses were $275 million in their last reported year? Do you understand that San Diego State's athletic expenses were $96 million? Do you understand that, like, South Dakota State is a really good example, prolific football program, $20 million athletic budget. So you're talking about Ohio State allocating $250 million more than South Dakota State. $154 million or even more than that, right? If they're, what is that? You take away $180 million more. That's wild. And so we get into these conversations about who's got athletic budget and who doesn't. There's a reason that Georgia, Bama, and Ohio State win, because they spend more and they allocate more, so they make more.
And they should be rewarded for that.
It's
and they've been rewarded for that. And they will continue to be rewarded for that. And I think that, it just is what it is. I'm sure that we'll have people, in our comments section, both during the show and as the day goes on, who say, oh, well, it's not fair to the G5. It's not fair to the smaller school. Well, fair or not fair, it's business, man. Like it is dollar evaluation. So if you're willing to spend $275 million on your athletic department, then yeah, you should be playing for a ton of money, right? Like you should be playing for the biggest and best you can get, and they are. So I still am curious. Other questions that might come to mind with this situation would be, okay, if we split this off, then with, TV contracts and agreements that are currently in place, I'm curious how scheduling will go, because obviously we all know and love the early season gimme game for Alabama. We all know the Poughkeepsie State game on Georgia's schedule. So does that style of scheduling now go away? Do we get better matchups more consistently because we've split everything off? I would think so. But those are questions that have to be vetted out and figured out.
Listen to these numbers. This is the Sportico. And by the way, where I'm getting these numbers is Sportico has a database of every university's expenses and revenue. Ohio State's overall revenue, $279 million. 279 $549. $279,549,000.
Uncle real.
That is their athletic revenue. Their athletic expenses, $274,948,000. That's a good tax guy. That's a really good tax guy. Like, so you can pick any school you want, right? And if you look at Boise State by comparison, Boise State, total athletic revenue, which is crazy to me, $60,653,000.
So why in the world?
Holy fuck!
Right? Like, why in the world would
my
Boise
God.
State be thrown into the ring with Ohio State?
Come on.
Right? Like, it's not like this. Like, that might be the best example we've ever used. Like, why would we do that? Why would we not just have Boise State competing with like for likes?
Georgia, total athletic revenue, $210,108,000. Okay. What about the Fresno State Bulldogs? How about a total revenue number of $48,938,000?
So Boise State is one of the most popular G5 schools, right? When you ask, hey, what G5 school you name? Oh, Boise State. Okay. You start looking at some of these other ones, dude. I'm sure there are other G5s that operate at 25, 30 a year, right? If Fresno State's 48, what is some rando in Nowhereville that you've ever heard of? Right? Like, I mean, that's what we're talking about.
It's wild to me.
I mean, you're talking about even for Boise State to compete in a situation where they'd have to pay the $22 million in revenue sharing. Now you're talking about operating at, 40 some odd million dollars in your athletic department. Right?
I mean, it's crazy to me.
So when we talk about, hey, why do we need a split? Well, we need a split because Ohio State can take $22 million and throw it in a bucket tomorrow, and they'll figure it out. But Boise State or Fresno State or Washington and State and Oregon State, whoever you want to point to, are not going to be able to do that. That you're talking about in some cases that being 50 to 60% of your overall athletic budget. That you can't do it.
It's crazy. And you start looking at some of these numbers and, I was doing this last night, just flipping around. And it's crazy to me that you have you have some of these schools that are making real money. And then I go look at somebody like Cal, who is debt ridden. And their total revenue is $126 million. Their expenses are $134 million. They're losing, and I've tried to tell people this, they're losing over $10 million a year in athletics because of the debt that they have.
What about a school like UConn, a basketball heavy school that has a football team? What about a school like that? What does that look like?
UConn, their total revenue for athletics, $93,115,000.
So this is a school.
They make $6 million on football and $10 million on basketball.
So this is a school that's basketball heavy. The football program obviously just exists. It's not really anything of consequence.
What are their expenses on football? So they made $6 million on football.
Yeah.
Right? Their expenses on football, $20,070,000.
That's their expenses.
They're losing $14 million and $14 million a year. And what have I told you about UConn? Nobody wants to subsidize their $14 million football shortfall. That's what's going to happen.
And you think UConn's going to be out here trying to pay $22 million in revenue sharing with those kind of numbers? No, they're not. No, they're not.
It is.
So, like, UConn has a very difficult decision to make because, again, this is a football conversation. But I am genuinely curious if this ever bleeds into basketball. Does this bleed into baseball? I highly doubt it bleeds into baseball, but I could definitely see something in basketball. Absolutely.
And then you look at somebody like a Florida State, and
Another great example.
Florida State reports revenue at $169,558,000. $91,476,000 in football revenue. Their expenses are $172 million. And a lot of those expenses, coaches' compensation, $24.4 million. So I look at some of this stuff and I'm like, dude, you are out of your mind if you think that these G5s are going to be able to compete. When we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars just in revenue alone.
Yeah.
There's Ohio State's got lapped you by $200 million. So I think this is what it should be. And I don't think there's any way for most people to grasp or get their head around the fact that you're never going to compete. You're never going to be able to, on a regular year in, year out basis, compete with the Ohio States of the world because they are a behemoth. And imagine being Ohio, not Ohio State, the University of Ohio.
You know, that other guy
trying to compete, the Bobcats, trying to compete with Ohio State, who's at $274 million, and you're at Ohio, the University of Ohio, $29 million. $29,970,000. Your expenses are $33,220,000. Like, do you understand the disparity there? And you'll never know about Notre Dame. You'll never know about BYU because they are private institutions,
right,
who do not have to report. And Notre Dame is notorious for not reporting their numbers. Like you look at, and I want to say that I can't remember who published it, but their numbers are that they made $215 million and they spent $170 million. And there is just I'm telling you, there's no chance that's accurate. There's no chance that's accurate. In my opinion,
right,
having been around Notre Dame, I think they are far more than $215 million.
Yeah.
But Notre Dame does not want you to know that.
And I wouldn't release those details if I didn't have to either.
Yeah, Notre Dame doesn't want you to know that. All right, less of us, more of you on the Monty Show, presented by The Advocates at theadvocates.com. You guys, again, I will say it every single day on this show. I appreciate everybody who has to date donated to The Advocates in their work with the road home. This is a critical time of year. And I understand that everybody's got real life and people are struggling in this world. And if you are struggling and you are not able to contribute, hey, I appreciate you being here. If you have it in your wallet and you have it in your heart, I ask you $5, $1 million, whatever you have to contribute. If you have a $20 bill, and really $20 in your bank account, because who carries cash anymore?
Right.
If you have $20 that you can donate on Venmo to Advocates Donations, please consider doing that right now. Don't wait. Don't do it at lunch. Don't do it tonight. Do it right now. Advocates Donations, they are partnered with the Road Home. Every dollar you donate goes directly to the Road Home, which is one of this country's foremost homeless advocacy groups. And they are working right now. It's called the Apple Tree. And if you're in Utah, go into the Advocates offices up and down the Wasatch Front. You can make your donation in person. You can pick your apple. Like, It's a really good program that provides basic school essentials for kids who are homeless, for kids who are underprivileged, to go to school and compete academically. And one of the stories we've been telling this week is how last year when they were giving kids backpacks, because one of the things that we take for granted is a backpack. Well, every kid's got a backpack, only they don't. When you're homeless and your parents aren't working, or maybe you're in a single family home and you're living in a car, or you're sleeping on different couches every night, your mom or your dad or your parents can't afford a backpack. So you go to school holding a notebook. Where do you keep your books? There are kids who are living in their lockers, quite literally, because they don't have bedrooms or dressers or closets. That's what we're talking about. $20 to the advocates, $5 to the advocates. Makes a huge difference. It goes right to those kids for clothing, things like socks, underwear, clothes that are not torn, ripped, or dirty, right? It gives these kids a sense of confidence and their ability to compete academically. It's huge. Advocates donations on Venmo. If you have it in your heart, you have it in your wallet, please consider making a donation. In the comment section on Venmo, please put the Monty Show school kids, the Monty Show homeless, the Monty Show kids, whatever you want to put. It really makes a difference to the advocates. Advocates donations on Venmo. All right, let's see who's in this morning on the show. First one in today, Mike Smith. Months ago, I would laugh at Florida State and Clemson to the Big 12. However, it seems there is a new blurb every day. Hit the like button. Yes, please do hit the like button. And speaking of a new blurb, did anybody see what Greg Sankey said on 1010XL in Jacksonville yesterday? He was being interviewed, and I'm a little surprised by this. I am a little surprised that the commissioner of the SEC took what is not even a veiled shot. This is a direct shot. He punched Florida State in the face when he said this.
So you take Georgia just because it's easy to remember. Within the league, they play at Ole Miss, finished with a win over Penn State, had 2 losses last year to Georgia and to Alabama. They play at Alabama, and they play at Texas. This is Georgia.
Right.
I mean, who's got 3 games like that on their schedule?
Yeah.
And they play Florida, too. You know. Don't forget that.
Well, no, that's right. I'm going. The neutral site, but I'm going to away.
Yeah.
And then they open with Clemson.
Right.
They finish with Georgia Tech, and there's a lot in between. How are you evaluating that against other schedules?
Yeah.
That could be think last year, that was one of the 4 best teams, period.
There's no question.
There's people in your listening audience that say, well, there he goes again.
Yeah.
We didn't stomp our feet. We didn't, fly banners over places. That was one of the 4 best teams. They lost 1 game in 2 years. Bad second half, second quarter, third quarter. And in the future, if they're 9-3 compared to a 10-2 or 11-1, the standard is not 10-2 or 11-1. It's the best teams.
Heat.
I mean, that is a not so secret shot at Florida State. We weren't hanging banners. We weren't stomping our feet. And now this conversation about, is Florida State damaged goods? I don't think there's any doubt they're damaged goods.
Mm-hmm.
And I just go back to the question of, okay, well, what happens when you win this lawsuit? I don't believe they will. No, most people don't believe they will. But let's say Florida State wins this lawsuit. Now what? Are you telling me that you hear that and you see the national reporting and you believe that Florida State is going to end up in the SEC? Man, I have a hard time believing that. I have a hard time believing that. And that's the most powerful guy in college football.
Mm-hmm.
That's Greg Sankey, the commissioner, talking to one of the most respected college football guys, Matt Hayes, who I used to work with at Sporting News, who is a really good football guy. And on one of the biggest sports talk shows, 1010XL, Matt Hayes in Jacksonville, you're shooting a cannon down Center Street in Tallahassee. My guess is Florida State's going to have a tough time getting into the SEC.
Well, and I think you know, like when I watched that clip, like I was what struck me was how comfortable he was saying that. There was no hesitation. There was no like, hey, better be careful, better not hurt Florida State. Like, no, it was like, hey, dude, we didn't do this. We got screwed too, but we just kept going. And I just think that Florida State's reputation has taken a beating here. And I think that, again, anytime in life you're a sore loser and you throw a fit to the point where you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on it, it's just a bad look. And I think that is why they, are damaged goods, as people are calling them now.
Yeah, it's wild to me. It is absolutely wild to me. And that's not all Greg Sankey said yesterday and by the way, this is Radio Row that you're looking at in these clips at SEC Media Day in their new home of Dallas, Texas. Which still pisses me off to this day. But here's Greg Sankey talking about the college football playoff.
So when you break it down, you have to understand it's not the 12 best teams. Right. It's the 5 best conference champions. 4 of them get a bye and know where they are. Then you've got a 5th that gets seeded, and then you've got the 7 remaining best teams.
Right.
That's the expectation. So you may be ranked 12th and not in because of 16th ranked conference champions in. That's the deal. That's more access for better teams. And that 5th spot may be among 5 conferences that may have 3 or 4 teams November 1st vying for a conference championship and opportunity. There's 20 teams that are in. And then the top 20 has the ability to access those remaining spots, arguably.
Yeah.
In the past, if you weren't in the top 10 November 1,
forget it.
You're not playing for the championship, and we value those things.
Arguably. Friends, you better understand something. This new college football playoff system was not meant to make more people have access to, or more universities have access to, the college football playoff. Just the opposite.
Yeah.
This was put in place to make sure that Georgia gets in. This was put in place now to make sure Florida State does not get in. Because what did Greg just say right there? The czar of college football just said if you're ranked number 12, there's a chance you're not getting in. Did he just openly to your?
So when you're looking at the college football playoff in November,
it's not a level playing field.
I don't want to see, oh, well, Marty, we're ranked 11th. That means we're in. No, it doesn't mean you're in. That is not how the college football playoff works. So just make sure you're clear on that.
Nope. Wow, look at that. Aaron Wilson back in the chat. Wow,
baby.
Aaron Wilson, a member of the show for 15 months. Aaron, good to see you. Howdy, y'all. Miss you guys. Wreck 'em, pew, pew. Exactly. Good to see you, Aaron Wilson. The real Pete Forte gifts 10 Monty Show memberships.
Go, Pete.
Pete's been a member of the show for 8 months. Thank you, Pete. We appreciate the pro rata you deserve. Great job. Good to see you. Aaron Wilson. We were talking about you yesterday and how much we missed you. So it's good to see you, I think. And we'll find out.
And stuff.
So good to see you, my guy. Eric in Raleigh, G5 is a new Division II. It is. It absolutely is. And there's no question that that's the case. What are you sending me here?
Donation to the Advocates.
A donation. Well, we always appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let's see.
Not having a competition today.
Not having a competition today. No, we are not.
This is just a donation from Oak State James. Want to give the guy credit? $10.
Hey, Monty Show kids, would you give me the gift card if I got books on leadership? I've read a few John Maxwell books. Well, I mean, that's better than reading books on
other stuff.
We had an interesting conversation with Oak State James the other day.
Yeah.
About his choice. Mike Smith, Mountain Mama, how are you? Backroom shady suspect meetings with greedy rich men looking for more money since they have to pay athletes now. Not wrong.
Yeah.
Not wrong. Not wrong at all. Kay Nurin, 22 million out of 200 is just 10%. It's crazy.
Well, and that's the thing you have to understand. I think it's a great point. Like the whole concept of revenue sharing $22 million per school is just basically saying to the Ohio States of the world, the Power 4 schools, all right, take your overall number, chop that thing down by 22 million.
Yeah.
And now you got to recoup that money. which is why they're doing this.
Yep. Wow, look at that. Members only content. Justin Bemis, welcome to the members only.
Let's go, baby.
Make sure you DM Jake. That'll get you into our Instagram members only group for as long as you can survive. Because it seems like several new members chose to come in and then they were chosen to go out.
Yeah, quote, stirring the pot. Yeah, that didn't work out.
Yeah, if you're likes to fight guy, you probably don't want to get into the members only chat. It's a good group of dudes. We have 70 something members.
Yeah,
in our members only Instagram chat, and it's great. So Justin, make sure you DM Jake. He will hook you up into that group. Welcome. We appreciate you as always. J2H hates the G5. He hates Murica.
I don't hate Murica. What I don't like is the little guy wanting the benefit without having to pay. I mean, we shouldn't be saying to the big boys, yeah, you know what? You're still going to have to play the little guy, even though the little guy's not paying to play you. Like we shouldn't be saying that. We should be saying, hey, it's a very simple criteria. You want a revenue share? You can play with the big dogs. You don't want a revenue share? You're going to play with these guys, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But the choice is clear, and the choice is simple. So what's your decision?
Yeah, I hate the G5. It just is what it is. Oak State James, stadium guy, and he loves the Big 12.
Okay.
Better than he had Bucky's on there for the longest time.
I'm a man.
I think you should put Love Priest Porn because that's what. Anyway, James is a pastor and he's currently going back to TCU to get his doctorate in priest atrocities.
God bless.
Knock yourself out, kid.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I think it should be based on stadium size. If your stadium holds less than 40K, you aren't in the Super League. Wake Forest is out. Boise State, when they are done with renovations, is in.
Well, thanks for sharing your opinion, because that's never going to happen.
Well, should we? Now, here's a wild theory.
Marty?
Should we enclose the corners and put more seats in so that we can get into the rich white guy league? It's an interesting question. Anyway, do I say no? All right, MAGA boy. Rutgers is making the same, if not more, than Notre Dame at the moment. They're not. It's not even close. They're not.
Yeah.
And according to the, let's see, where is Rutgers in the Sportico? Let's look at Rutgers, because most people, I think, would agree that Notre Dame's somewhere around $260 million. Rutgers in this database? They are right there. Rutgers is making $125.4 million in revenue, spending $153.5 million.
Dude, that's such a loss.
They're losing $2.50 for every one they spend on football. And they are losing $3 for every one they spend on basketball. And yeah, their biggest expense is by far coaches' compensation, followed by administrator compensation, followed by athletic student aid. So I'm going to say that Rutgers is not making anywhere near what Notre Dame is making.
Yeah,
which is fine. Justin Bemis, hey Monty, keep it coming. Love the show. Appreciate you. Thank you. Always good. Yale Stadium holds 60,000, so they're into the Super League.
Dude, wow, book it.
Yeah,
come on, man. You guys understand this though, and I know, like, we have a lot of Fresno State fans that watch the show. We have a lot of San Diego State fans. We have a lot of Boise fans. Idaho's a big market for us. A lot of Utah State fans. Like, we have a lot of G5s that watch this show, including Michigan fans. So what I would tell you is, you don't want to be in the Super League. You cannot compete at that level. If you think about the money, and one of the main things that you're going to be able to do in this upper tier where the P4 are going to live, you're going to be able to spend significantly more money, which right now you're not allowed to do. You're going to be able to pay players, which right now You're not allowed to do. Like the financial outlay is going to bankrupt you. If you are, and again, I know collectives and private money, but just think about the garden variety athletic department budget at a state school. If you're UTSA, should you be in the top tier? No, you shouldn't. If you are, and I say about, Tulane, should Tulane be in the top tier? That's a tough road to hoe. Should Liberty be in the, and I know, my God, Jesus Christ is a Liberty fan. We know that. Stay hard. Ask JD Vance. He knows.
Right.
Are you really telling me that Liberty should be trying to compete? No, they spend too much money on NASCAR, dude.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're just in a position where you've got to understand that you should not be trying to compete at these upper levels, because there is going to be a pot of gold for you at the second level. You're going to have a championship. You're going to have the ability. The problem is we as sports fans let our ego overshadow our common sense. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It is as simple as that. And I know that's not going to be popular, and I know that's not going to be what everybody wants to hear.
It's true, though. It's true. It's absolutely what we do.
It's a tough road to hoe. And Rutgers is a very interesting example. Rutgers is getting that $100 million a year from the Big Ten, aren't they? Well, now they should be coming into their full share, and they're still, because you look at Rutgers revenue, and you start to understand their media rights are $44,137,000 of their profit, their revenue. Ticket sales, $14 million. Conference distribution, $11.7 million. So the pro rata they deserve is 50% of what everybody else is getting. Because in that league, if you go and you look at, I don't know, who else would you look at? Look at, what about like what about Pedo State?
Happy Ending Valley.
Their media rights, $40 million. Conference distribution, 10.9. Like, where are all the big... Now, granted, these deals kick in, right? The new media deal in the Big Ten kicks in now. So you're going to start seeing when the new numbers come out, that's when you're going to see who's going to get a full share. And now Rutgers is going to get that money. Rutgers is more able to compete with Penn State than South Dakota State, Boise State. Can Boise State legitimately compete with Penn State? And I'm not talking about Michigan, Ohio State, the big revenue generators. I'm talking about Pedo State. Pedo State, $200 million overall revenue. San Diego State, how are you going to compete with that? That's the thing that I'm not trying to be a cock about it, but
and I would think that some of these G5s would be excited about this on some level, wouldn't you? Because you no longer, assuming this goes through in a reasonable amount of time, you're no longer going to have the burden of figuring out hey man, like our athletic budget's, $50 million as an example, and 22 of that's got to go to athletes and revenue sharing. Like, come on.
Of San Diego State's $103 million of revenue in 2022, 2023, what do you think their number one revenue generator was? Was it media rights distribution? No, $3.3 million.
No, I would think for them it's probably stadium stuff, concessions and stuff.
Like ticket sales?
Yeah.
$9.7 million. Nope. Direct institutional support? $15 million. Nope. How about donations? Donations was San Diego State's single biggest athletic department revenue generator at $30 million. Miscellaneous, $22.3 million.
So out of $100 million or so, $103 million, a third of that is just people donating. Do you understand how unstable that is?
And their athletic facilities, $20,368,000 second largest expense. Now that changes with Snapdragon. Their licensing in ads, which were just 10.9 million, that'll go up now because you're going to start seeing more new money come in, but it won't go up substantially.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, that line item, licensing and ads. Why are we not seeing more of those type of line items when it comes to the revenue sheet? Why are we not seeing, endorsement stuff and licensing stuff and sponsorship stuff? I'm telling you, I don't care who you are. If you're a G5, Power 4, it doesn't matter. You got to have more people sponsoring the program. Like, that's got to happen at a higher level.
And you have to remember now that new media rights deals are kicking in. You're seeing different distribution tiers in the Big 10, in the Big 12. And these numbers are 1 year old. They're 2022, 23. So when those new numbers get released, it's going to be very interesting to see how things change. Very interesting. Aaron Wilson gives a Monty Show membership. Aaron, appreciate you. Brandon Butler, how soon do we start seeing smaller universities start closing down programs? I think that's coming. How long are admins and states going to tolerate a deficit? I don't know how long they can.
I mean, it really stands out. Like, hey, you're running at one of those schools just like that was like $15 million deficit. Like, how do you do that, man?
I don't know that you can. Giggity. Stadium size. Why are subjected to James takes every morning?
Can you measure it?
That's what I'm saying. James says, giggity. The stadium size is a good reflection of their overall athletic budget. The big guys have bigger stadiums, but look at UCLA. UCLA plays at the Rose Bowl where nobody goes. Even when they're good, nobody goes. It stadium size, and everybody tends to be like, oh, bro, look how big I am. Well, that's cool, but how many stadiums are full? Is Snapdragon in San Diego full? It's not. So it's great you have this beautiful new palace, but if it's a loss leader, what good is it? If your facilities are loss leaders, what good is it? Why do you think you're hearing all of these big boy programs like Utah, like all these big programs? Hey, we sold out our season ticket allocation. Ole Miss sold out our season ticket allocation.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the guys making money on their stadiums.
Yeah.
Yale's not selling 60,000 tickets a week. They're not. Do you know how hard it is to get a ticket at Notre Dame? It's not hard. It's just super expensive because there are none available.
Why do you think Colorado was so excited to sell out in that first season?
It's a big, big deal, man. It is a big, big deal. And you now not only have to understand that your expenses aren't going down, they're going up. And so if you're one of these P4 universities, dude, you're spending exponentially more money. So Florida State's a really good example of this. If they wind up, let's say, going private money, because I can't, but again, and Mike Smith, maybe you're right. Maybe they are joining the Big 12. Do you know how much they're going to lose money on that?
Mm-hmm.
How does that make sense? They're going to lose money on that.
That's why I think your question of what happens if what happens after this whole saga's done. Like, let's say you win, where are you going to go? And let's say you did go to the Big 12. Okay, you're going to lose money, and you're going to lose more money because the revenue sharing situation is going to begin. So again, why would you even want to leave the ACC at this time? Like,
I know. James, I love Maverick Stadium. Are you talking about like Utah State Maverick Stadium? Maverick is a huge convenience store chain. They could easily add an upper deck on the visiting side and boost attendance to 4. Are you out of your goddamn mind? You have no idea what you're talking about. What they need to do is put a satellite campus in North South. They have multiple satellite campuses to up the interest in Utah. God. James, this is one of the most dumber things you've ever done said on this here program.
And it's about stadiums, which is surprising.
This is absolutely incorrect.
No,
nobody cares about. So come on, Utahns. Somebody back me up on this shit. Nobody cares. It's Aggie tears for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest news Utah State's made lately has not been good.
They're not selling out. They're not adding an upper deck on the visitor. Utah State's a really good school. It's an ag school, though. Agriculture school. Right down I live, how far from Logan are we? 90 minutes minimum?
Yeah.
2 hours? They have an agricultural outcropping 5 minutes down the road from me. It is all about horses and equine and all of that. It's not that nobody knows Utah State. Everybody knows Utah State. The issue is it's a small school that is never going to be named Utah Utes or BYU Cougars. That's like saying, man, if we could just get Weber to add 50, 60,000 seats to their stadium. Do we have numbers on Utah? Like, this is crazily bad. I should probably just let it go, but I'm not that guy, pal. I do not. Yeah, right there. Here's Utah State's budget. So Utah State, and I don't know why this won't load their revenue, but let me see if I can get it. Let me see if I can get it right here on their revenue. Utah State's, and of course, Sportico is not working for me right now. So, but Utah State is somewhere around $100 million in revenue and $98 million in expenses.
Yeah.
And they don't care.
Yeah, let's add an upper deck. That seems smart. Seems good, dude.
It's not what they do, man.
Yeah.
With all due respect. It's just not who they are. And I would love it to be who they are. God damn it, Sportico. Why you finna
Why
do
you
me
tripping, bruh?
Why you finna do me like this? Yeah, their revenue and I can see maybe they didn't report for 2022-23. I don't know. But Utah State's, their total expenses for 22-23 were $42.8 million. Their total revenue was $43.157 million. I'm going to say they're not putting a 40,000 seat upper deck on the visitor side.
Nah, I don't think so, bro.
Don't drag us into your nonsense, James. Exactly. James also says, because James is a stadium guru. I figured Dakota would agree with me. Mizzou is increasing the size of their stadium. Clearly, Mizzou is one of the big boys.
I mean, yeah, Mizzou would definitely be on the revenue sharing portion, but I think Mizzou would be one of those closer to the fringe teams that would really have to work hard to be able to make the $22 million work.
Put 40,000 seats on the visitor side at Utah State.
It's not the best situation, and we all know that.
That's one of the craziest goddamn things James has ever said on this show. I mean, that's awesome. The wave is very important. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The wave is, I mean, I don't know how you don't just do the wave every single day.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It is. Yeah. Bro, why are we talking stadium size, James? That wasn't a serious comment. Come on, bro. Mark Hales, nobody cares about you. Exactly. Most dumber comment ever, James. Most dumber.
Thank you.
UW fan Jim, Utah was only 1.5 million in the black, or UW was only 1.5 million in black. Even at half share, it should get better. Who do you mean, like Washington? Well, let's take a look at Washington. The Washington Huskies for 2022-23, 151,599,000 in revenue, $150,037,000 in expenses, and they're making 2-to-1 on every dollar that they spend on football. They're about $1 million clear in basketball. Women's basketball loses $5 million for them. And their number one expense is coaching compensation at $28 million. Again, another university, though, at UW. What's their number one revenue generator?
Donations.
That's their number one revenue generator.
But even for them, like, they're only, $1 million into profit right there?
Yeah.
We just saw. So, I mean, again, even for Washington, this $22 million situation is going to have to get figured out, because you're obviously not going to run at a $20 million or $21 million deficit. So you're going to have to make that gap up.
Yeah, I totally agree. MAGA boy, if stadium upgrades are important, why hasn't Michigan done anything to the Big House in 100 years? Because are you going to fix up the outhouse, or are you just
a stalwartness?
Nobody's fixing up that shithole. Are you kidding me? Come on. Big Blue Horse is a member for 8 months.
Let's go, baby.
Utah runs a lean athletic department for a reason. They do. Utah is, and I've talked to people at Utah about this when the Pac-12 thing was going down. They are they're penny for penny, not dollar for dollar.
Stingy.
They look at I wouldn't even say stingy. They're just really accountable for every penny they spend. As they should be. Oak State James. What is your hard on for Upper Decks?
Stay hard.
Like, what is this with Upper Decks? Would Utah put an upper deck on their visiting side?
Dude, bro.
No, there's not potential for growth.
Hey, look here, man.
Do you understand that having too much demand and not enough supply is where you want to be in college football? When you have too many tickets and not enough fans to buy the tickets, you don't want any empty seats. So putting an upper deck on the visitor side is a loss leader. It's a loss leader. Rice Eccles is inarguably one of the best home field advantages in all of college athletics.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? You already have a beautiful renovated stadium. The visuals now are strong. The warehouse in the north end zone, like state of the art in the south end zone now. Why would you're not doing that. You're not doing that. Giggity. Larger stadiums mean more concessions. It all makes sense now.
Okay, I see.
Schemers trying to control their little worlds.
Roche says, I could use an upper deck at my house.
Yeah, I can use an upper deck. Yeah.
Mike Smith, James is an upper deck man. Don't let him use your bathroom if he visits you. Stephen Smith, can you put a link to where you guys are getting the numbers for expenses and revenue for each college? Just all you have to do is look up Sportico College Sports Finance Database. It is readily available to the public. And their latest, their Sportico is amazing. They have the latest numbers 2022, 23.
Yeah.
So 23, 24 has not been reported yet in detail. So yeah, it's pretty. Sportico is, I think, the industry standard. So
yeah, they do good work.
What about Iowa State?
Iowa State and that defense.
While you're asking, Stephen Smith, how about Iowa State? Iowa State, should Iowa State opt in to revenue share $22 million a year? On revenue of $115,584,000. Another university who has the number one revenue generator of donations. Number two, media rights, $24.8 million. Okay. Coaches' compensation, number one expense. Athletic student aid, 10.2. Athletic facilities, $8 million. Game expenses, $3.2 million. They made roughly 2-1 in football. They made roughly 2-1 in basketball. They lost $20 million on every other sport. And they made about $60,000 in athletics. So if I said to you, let's add $22 million on top of a $10 million NIL payment. Now, instead of $60,000, what did you make? You didn't make, you lost. And Iowa State's a really good example. You're in a smaller market in Ames. You're on the line with that.
Yes.
You were on the line with that. So, Aaron Wilson, the mailman who delivers right here on the Monty program.
Hey, Monty.
I'm more of a lower deck kind of guy if and when possible. Exactly. OG Gary. James is upper decking a couple of Zins right now. I think that's true. I think that's true. So Utah State is like Tulsa.
Bro.
Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are the big boys of Oklahoma. Utah and BYU are the big boys of Utah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but that's pretty obvious in the state of Utah, bro. Like, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, you do have Utah SUU. What
about Weber, bro?
What about Utah Tech, who I am fond of calling the sleeping giant in this state? None of them can even compete. There really is no other. And I think BYU is the biggest brand in Utah when it comes to sports. I think BYU has, just because of the church, in my opinion, has a larger brand than Utah does, but they're both the behemoths in the state.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but again, I'm not playing your stupid Oklahoma State game today, James. I'm not doing it. Trigger Monty's not happening today. I would argue Lavelle Edwards Stadium in Provo is probably $10K too big for the same reason you articulated. Rice Eccles is just right. And I love BYU fans, and I love BYU football. And is every game sold out, even in the corners?
No.
No, it's not. And I think BYU, who you're never going to look at their books. Forget it. That's what I say about Notre Dame. You're never going to know the real numbers.
Yeah.
Never. BYU makes money on athletics, I would guess. They're amazing at branding. The new skin, BYU, your mom.
Radio Network.
They make money.
Yeah.
They show up. And they have guys like Ryan Smith who show up. And they have, they're a revenue generator.
We show up.
So I would tell you that, yeah, they show up. You'll never know it.
Yeah.
But what about, let's look at Okie Light. Shall we?
Now, was this before or after the Mike Gundy comments?
I'm a man.
Oklahoma State. $122,009,946 in revenue. $121,003,194 in expenses. They report earnings of $24 million on football. They report earnings of about $5.3 million on basketball. And they report losses of about $15 million on all other sports. Their number one, Oklahoma State, their number one revenue generator is donations.
What is that, 35% of their revenue generation?
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that's got to be, it's not quite 40, but.
Yeah, they're.
That's a lot, dude.
Yeah, $11.2 million specifically earmarked for football, right? So you look at media rights, $19.3 million in football media rights, $7.2 million in basketball. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. So again, I ask you, if you're Okie Light, Okay, well, let's lop off $22 million. Now instead of making $1 million, you've lost $20 million. $10 million for the NIL. Now, instead of making $1 million, you've lost $30 million. You see the kind of numbers we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's just on a peripheral level. Basic ass level.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even for your blue blood schools, they're still going to have to look at, how to make up that gap. And that's why this needs to take place, so that you can get more private money, corporate money, big donor donations. Hey, we're forward and we're going to get, each school another 10 mil a year for the entire conference. We're this or that, in Stillwater, and we want to make sure that Oklahoma State's football program's got what it needs. So that's another 10 million on an annual basis for 5 years. So Like, that's what you're going to see.
Yep, totally agree. All right. Hour number 2 of the Monty Show, as always, presented by our good friends at Canyons Golf, the official golf course of the Monty Show. Played some pretty unremarkable golf last night. It was hot. I got fucked last night. I got to be honest with you. We got stuck behind a couple of liver spots, and it must have been... It was so frustrating.
Yeah.
You're playing slow golf, and they're not bad people. But then we leave, and we find out that the group in front of them was a dad and his wife and their 2 kids, and one of the kids was like 6 years old. Why? Should never happen. Doesn't excuse my poor putting last night, which is fine. Golf is such an interesting beast. One of the things I like about Canyons is you very rarely stand around. We played just short of a 4-hour round last Sunday at Canyons because it moves. You very rarely, with some exceptions, catch yourself behind 2 groups at a tee box. That almost never happens at Canyons. They do a great job spacing out tee times. It seems like they are always very busy. Every time I'm there, it's packed, but they do a great job, and you really do not find yourself standing around a whole lot. And it's one of the things I really love about it. It is resort-style golf in the mountains of Park City, lush fairways, really beautiful vistas to hit into, and you're doing it at Park City Mountain Resort, which is a world-class vacation destination. One of the things I love about Canyons is you can go do a staycation weekend. You're at one of the best resorts in the world, whether it is, a Marriott or, a Ritz-Carlton, wherever you want to stay, a Yotel pad. They have it all because it's one of the best resorts in the country. And you're doing it with world-class dining experiences, world-class spas, nature. You can hike, you can bike. Oh, by the way, did I mention they have a golf course? It's beautiful. I love playing Canyons golf. I won't be there this weekend. I'll be in Boston with the Foo Fighters, but that's how much I enjoy playing at Canyons. I'm actually going to miss it because I will be in out of town.
Yeah.
Like, I miss it that much. That's how awesome Canyons golf is. Book online. Tell them you heard about it on the Monty Show. Canyons Golf. Drive up the canyon. I'm telling you, it's far worth it. I understand that a lot of people don't like, or they feel like driving up to Park City is so far, Monty. It's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
For a world-class golf experience, 15 minutes is worth it. Trust me. But it's cowards like OG Gary who say, oh, bro, I'm coming out this summer.
Yeah, I'm going to play with you guys, and, I'm just too busy now. I got school and stuff, and,
Look, I got to take a dump, bro. How can I go play golf? You know what, man?
Yeah, I'm an upper deck guy, so,
I got to put gas in the car. I got to go get groceries. Like, whatever you say, OG Gary. Whatever you say. Mike Smith, the pretty much drink white zero monsters every day. We back on Bucked Up? I'm always on Bucked Up.
Yeah.
Always on Bucked Up. And Bucked Up just had their 50% off sale, by the way. You can always go to buckedup.com, use the promo code Monty to get 20% off at checkout. I love Bucked Up. It is what it is, right? Pretty much. Whoa, LOL. They pretty much drink white zero sugar Monster every day. I do usually have a zero sugar Monster. True. James. God damn it. For $5. I wouldn't add an upper deck at Rice Eccles. Don't want to block the view of the mountains.
Oh, okay. So
but a row of club
guy.
suites would bring in a lot more. No, it would. Have you ever been to Rice Eccles State? You should probably go. You know. OG Gary, I'm not ducking no smoke. We can run it next week. I should have some time freeing up starting next week. Oh, did you get expelled from LSU? Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. MAGA Boy got some stacks the other day, 50% off. Yeah, Bucked Up's 50% off sale is
gas.
Yeah, it has been, always will be. Love my guys at Bucked Up. Do you guys give a rat's ass about Skip Bayless leaving Fox Sports? And furthermore, where are we in society today with this screaming TV sports debate thing? Now, everybody is assuming Skip Bayless is going back to ESPN. He's not. I know some folks up in Bristol. I don't think Skip goes back to ESPN. We'll see. Stranger things have happened, but I'm telling you, I don't believe he goes back. And my opinion is that Skip Bayless has, if he's ever had best days, they're behind him. And I don't understand this genre of yell at the camera and each other in sports talk. Like, fortunately, I can, with all seriousness, tell you, I've never seen an episode of Skip's show on Fox. I don't believe, and it may be one or two on accident, I don't believe I ever saw his cold pizza, undisputed, whatever it was,
right,
on ESPN. I think on accident, I may have seen Stephen A. Smith 2 or 3 times. And I can't do the, I'm appalled, this is terrible, we don't have anything to talk about, so let's get upset about nothing show.
And hate on LeBron.
Because that's what that show feels like every single day. And I understand they got to bring viewers to the TV. I totally get that. I'm not here for it in any way, shape, or form. I'm just not. And to me, Skip Bayless is part of what's wrong with sports today. Is there anybody who loves Skip Bayless? And I would love to hear from you in the comments section. Is there anybody here who loves Skip Bayless?
I mean, I just don't think a lot of people watch Skip anymore. I mean, I think if you just took the First Take versus Undisputed numbers, you see that really it's just such a small audience. And I think that's the problem is, like, I don't, like, someone my age, like me personally, I've never seen Skip Bayless not doing the whole hot take, world ending, screaming thing. Like, I've never seen Skip just deliver a casual, hey, this story in sports, this is what I think take. Like, that's not ever been who he is. And I don't know. I feel like Skip leaving Fox is kind of a sign that the sports fan is evolving, is truly dialing in what they want out of their sports talk. And I'm not saying that like we're the best show or something like that, but what I am saying is that we work hard not to do the whole screaming thing, and not to, like, we just try to have conversations. And I think that's ultimately what it has become about. And I think that you know, the options right now are kind of limited. You know, if I'm being, like, really clean cut with it, like, I don't feel like we have a ton of great sports talk right now. I mean, you have some names, you've got, you know, the old school guys, the Rich Eisen, Dan Patricks of the world, but they're not garnering huge audiences.
100%.
You know, Pat McAfee is his own genre to himself, I feel like they, and I never thought I would say this, but they have definitely graduated into bro talk. They are just guys sitting around talking about whatever, and they don't seem, with all due respect, all that informed about what they talk about. They just kind of...
You mean Pat's show?
Yeah, Pat's show.
The baseball talk yesterday was brutal.
Yeah, like, you don't seem very informed about really anything. It very much seems like a show that if you're talking football, you know how to talk football because you played in the NFL, But other than that, it's just kind of whatever. It lacks sort of that zip. And so then you wind up watching a show like Jim Rome, and he's doing all this cool stuff on Twitter, and that's great. But even his show sometimes lacks a little zip. So I just don't feel like when things like Skip Bayless leaving Fox come up, your average sports talk listener is like, oh man, wow, bro, where's Skip going? Like if we didn't hear from Skip for 5 years, nobody would be worse off. That's the problem.
I just think we don't have talent in sports talk. And I think Skip fell prey to the cow turd syndrome, which was I'm going to go to Fox Sports and I'm going to disappear. Because I think largely Colin Cowherd is irrelevant. Skip Bayless is irrelevant. If you're not at ESPN in some form or fashion, I feel like you're irrelevant. And I think locally, we've run into this issue where there's not many 20-somethings who want to get into sports talk radio anymore. Where are they? Well, they're right here on YouTube. Right? And everybody, and for better or for worse, everybody's a talk show host on YouTube. It makes life very difficult for people like us who've done this for, I've been in sports talk since I was 17. I think 17. I've worked in radio since I was 16. This is essentially all I've known. And yet, the problem is you look around, there are so many sports talk radio jobs open right now. As many as I can ever remember, in fact.
Yeah.
And we get calls often.
Weekly.
At least. Hey, would you guys look at this? What do you think about that? Or the answer is no. The answer is no. And I think it's because we've lost creativity and we've lost coaching, talent, development. We don't spend money on talent anymore. Like we talked to a major market radio station 2 weeks ago in a top 10 market in this country offering less than $100,000 to do a full-time 5-day-a-week talk show. That's just not even a consideration.
Yeah, and I don't know where people get off in the industry thinking that you're going to get what you want for that money. And I don't feel like, and this is the point I always make, like when we're talking about real estate and all that, 100 G's isn't 100 G's anymore. Like $100,000 is like 79 to 85, depending on where you live.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I think you look at, and I'm just looking at some of the jobs that are open. It's wild to me.
I mean, you look at some of the jobs on the West Coast and the West Coast markets, like, dude, you're talking about a single, let's just say a 20-something single dude who is obsessed with sports talk, wanting a job. You're talking about asking that cat to make 80 a year at most and have probably at least $2,000 in housing cost a month. Like, you're not living on that. Like, no. You're like, it's not good. That's the problem.
Yeah, I don't care if Skip ever. I don't think he should work anymore. What does he bring? It's why he got run out of the newspaper business, in my opinion. I look at Skip in Chicago. Skip was a compelling writer who fell in love with himself on TV. And granted, I am guilty. I think I've told this story before. I am guilty of launching Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith together on TV. We did it on the Jim Rome show at Fox Sports. I used to work for Jim. I was a what they call a booking producer. I would book all of his guests. And we put Stephen A. and Skip Bayless. We used to do a Friday roundtable sports talk thing. And we put, man, I don't even want to say his name. We put Skip, Stephen A., and Jason Whitlock on a panel together. And all three of them turned into sports TV guys. Now, Jason Whitlock's kind of become an embarrassment.
Yeah.
Skip and Stephen A. obviously have gone on to do great things. But it's just really interesting how many of these guys make their living saying ridiculous things they don't believe in, yelling at you. And people pay them for it. You know, like it's wild to me.
Yeah, and I think they do that because there's not many other options, and that's really the problem. Is like we don't want to pay the people who are good at this or who really make it a profession, and then we want to complain when the radio stations in Salt Lake replace their long times with dudes who are just kind of meh, and I think that's the problem is like, there was recently an opening in Salt Lake that got filled, and I listened to that show. And I was like, yeah, bro, like, cool.
This is bad.
At least he's younger, but this ain't great. This is just kind of whatever. And it's no disrespect to anybody, but it's just like, yeah, man, like I'm trying to gravitate to you. I'm trying to stay like I'm because you know how it is as a listener, right? Like when you're listening to something, if you have to like work hard to be compelled or work hard to stay, you're not going to stay. And that's been my biggest gripe about sports talk of any genre, whether it's radio or if you have a visual medium. I don't feel like dudes know how to work together to create sort of this good, compelling, meaty conversation. Like I feel so often like it's just, hey, we're going to be really surface level with it, and that's just kind of what we're going to do, and that's it. And that's where the industry just suffers so much.
Yeah. Let's see. Who's on the chat machine? OG Gary, Skip needs to retire and go away. Maybe. Eric and Raleigh, God damn you, Tim, you killed sports talk. I did it. It's singularly my fault. John says, what's up with the NBA TV deal? It's done. What do you mean, what's up with it?
Yeah, what do you mean?
The only component of the NBA TV package that has to be worked out is what Warner Brothers is going to do with TNT. Warner Brothers, and we talked about this ad nauseum, I don't know when, 2 weeks ago or whatever. Warner Brothers, who owns TNT, has a right to match. And my guess is they would match. The new TV deal essentially is going to be NBC, ESPN, Amazon Prime Sports. Amazon will have, a weekly package type thing. My guess is what happens is Warner Brothers TNT will do a streaming only deal. They have a right to match Amazon's deal. The NBA is going to be on Amazon Prime Sports, whether you want it to be or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think that TNT or Warner Brothers Discovery is what it's called now. Will make their own little NBA package, and I think it'll be available in stream. I don't necessarily believe it'll be on TNT, but that TV deal is done. ESPN is your main partner. NBC has filler programming, I think, if I remember right. And Amazon Prime Sports has significant streaming content.
Well, and the big thing was that there was going to be a national game 5 days a week, I believe it was, where you're going to have a game that's nationally available. So not to say that it's going to be, the ESPN game every single night, but like it'll be available on Prime or available on Peacock or available on ESPN or any of the number of outlets that they're working with as part of this deal. And I thought that was a cool component.
NBA on ESPN and ABC is the main distributor. NBC and Amazon are added for the 25-26 season. And then we'll see what Warner Brothers does. But that's what I think it's a $76 billion deal or something stupid like that. But it's done. Like there's no. And John also says, does anyone know what the holdup is? There is no holdup.
Yeah. What do you mean, bro?
Yeah, that deal is done.
It's done, man.
It's over. Mike Smith, yeah, hated Rome as well. Such a swarmy sounding prick. He's actually, you once you're around him for a while, you understand. He has that persona, and he's not a guy that you flip on day one and be like, oh man, I love this guy. He is an acquired taste, and he even will tell you that. It takes time. So, and yeah. If John Kurtz was on Fox or ESPN, I'd watch that. I like his demeanor. He acts like a professional. Skip acts like the old guy who wants you to stay off his lawn.
Yeah.
There's some of that. Aaron Wilson, caps lock isn't a day. It's a frame of mind. Totally agree.
Dude, I appreciate so much that you're back, dude.
Yeah, it's good to see you, man. Mad Cat, Fox Sports is nothing but filler. It's 100%. Not even on the radar.
100%.
MAGA Boy, Cowherd was cool when they had a 5 p.m. show on ESPN with that chick. Joy
Taylor.
Aaron Wilson, John Kurtz is the rising star of YouTube's. Could be. Jawline John is dreamy. Okay. Roche, finally watching Curry on Team USA was awesome. The squad is winning gold.
Dude.
Well,
they got to learn how to put a whole game together, man. They have been messy to start games.
yeah. RX says, John Skipper says, who's John Skipper? Warner Brothers doesn't have a right to match. That's completely false. Completely. They're not trying to match the top end TV distribution. The days of the NBA on TNT are likely over. But I think what you're going to see is they're going to do a streaming deal. I don't even know that we'll have NBA games on TNT. I think there's a real possibility that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you're more likely to see is Warner Brothers or, whatever it might be could match, but they're talking about like NBA games on the Max, which is HBO's streaming service. I'm not watching NBA on Max. I'm not doing that. Like Max is not a streaming service. Yeah. Max is not comparable to Amazon.
And I think that the other thing for the NBA to consider is, and obviously I don't know numbers, but how many people are on League Pass and how much of your audience is just going to access it through that? Because obviously for media rights, a big component is how much viewership these folks who are paying to get your games are going to see. And that's what I think is really interesting. It seems like there is no lack of audience, that the NBA just has loads of people watching on all these different platforms, and that, that's why they're able to get so much revenue. But I can tell you right now, like I love League Pass. I love being able to just flip between games and all that. And it's a great product. And I think that stuff like League Pass and Sunday Ticket and all that are for the hardcore fan where they're going to be. I don't think you're going to be, to your point, watching a one-off NBA game on Max.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. And again, just, I think Amazon will have the in-season tournament and alternate conference finals with NBC, while ESPN also gets a conference final in the NBA finals every season. I don't know where TNT fits into this, but they have the right to match. There's no doubt and I want to say it was Sports Business Journal yesterday had an article. I posted it in the Monty Show members only group chat on Instagram. The deal, lock, stock, and barrel, is being sent to Warner Brothers Discovery so they can make a decision. They can match, and which most people think they will not do because financially they don't want to pay that kind of money. They can use it as a leverage point to say, hey, we want to do this on streaming, and we want to have this package for this amount of money, which I think is likely. I think that's what the most likely thing is. There's no reason that TNT might sublease from ESPN. Why would ESPN do that? In what world does it make sense for ESPN and Disney to say, yeah, let me help one of our biggest competitors? If anything, ESPN and Disney would like to cut Warner Brothers out of it. Because what is one of ESPN's revenue superstars right now? ESPN Plus, their streaming service. So, OG Gary, Mad Dog is also an acquired taste, correct? Very small doses. Very, very small doses. MAGA Boy, Michelle Beadle and Cowherd. Forgot the name of the show. It was at 5 p.m. Oh, Michelle Beadle.
Oh, but you're talking about back in the day.
Michelle Beadle is, yeah. There's so many stories about her. It'll be interesting to see exactly how all that works out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That'll be interesting. I think Michelle Beadle is one of the lost stars of sports TV. And I think she does FanDuel TV now. Could be wrong. But We'll see. I don't know. ESPN has churned through some folks.
Yes, they have.
There's no doubt about that. All right. Let's wrap up the show today with some non-sports stories. First of all, did you guys see the Donald Trump Jr. speech last night? This was, and listen, it's a convention, and I can only take 5-10 minute stretches of conventions. Like the Democratic convention next week, and we got to talk about Old Man Joe here in a minute. I think it's going to be a shit show, but you'll watch for the horror effect.
Yeah.
Listening to Donald Trump Jr. last night straight up lie about how people are unemployed and unable to provide for their families. The best part was Fox News last night. He goes on to talk about, he said something about immigrant crime and that the influx of immigrants into our country illegally caused a spike in murder and violent crime. And so this is a Republican talking point, right? Oh, there's all this crime. Well, fuck, we better vote for the Republicans. And then you see all these assholes now putting bandages on their ears. What the fuck are you guys doing? Anyway, so Fox comes out. And I don't know if Fox is pro or anti-Trump. I truly don't know. Fox comes out with crime stats last night. And I think this happened because Fox got fact-checked on immigrant crime, I think last week. Hardcore by the Washington Post. And the truth is, and you can go look this up, it is widely published now. The truth is that if you look at the crime either in border states and the areas right around the border, the area where most immigrants are being bussed, so New York, Chicago, for instance, and you look at the violent crime, murders included, what do you think happens when you do an analysis of murder and violent crime in an area where illegal immigration has taken place? Or illegal immigration is a big impact. What do you think happens?
I mean, you may see a slight uptick, but
anybody do some research? The counties on the borders in Arizona and Texas, violent crime is down, not up. In Texas, where is the safest place to live? Any of the counties surrounding the Mexico border. New York and Chicago. One of the other things that the Republicans have been running out is that New York and Chicago are murder capitals of the country. Completely false. So you shipped all these immigrants that broke into the country illegally. You shipped them to New York and Chicago. What happened to violent crime? Oh, Monty, it spiked through the roof. People aren't safe. Oh, my God. Down. Murders, down. Violent crimes, assaults, down. It's just not factual. You can't link violent crime and murder to illegal immigration. Now, is illegal immigration bad for a lot of reasons? Absolutely. It is absolutely a problem. Housing, resources, water, electricity, local resources, homelessness, shelter. It's illegal immigration is a massive problem in this country. And we've got to fix it. And Uncle Joe ain't that dude, right? I think we all know that. But the narrative that violent crime is linked to illegal immigration, total horseshit. It's not true. And it's one of those things that it's going to be really interesting to see exactly how that narrative plays out, because I think the Hispanic vote is going to be an absolutely critical part for whichever guy wins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you start looking at the lies that are told at the RNC and the DNC, like the Democratic and Republican conventions, because all it is a bunch of bullshit and lies. That's 100% what it is. You can just like already, and only because it's first, right? The Republican convention is happening right now. The bullshit and the lies that are coming out of these speeches.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It is at like the inflation and the economy last night. Donald Trump Jr. again, Fox News fact checking him. The economy's never been worse. Okay, so I'm just asking for a friend. When has unemployment ever been as low as it is now? When has the stock market ever been where it is? Because they said the stock market was in total decline. The stock market's never ever been higher than it is now.
Yeah.
And the thing that I don't understand, and again, when I think back to the Republican Party that I've supported pretty much for my entire life, this ain't it. Why are you not going after Joe Biden as an incompetent candidate? Don't talk about his fucking economy. That's the wrong thing to go after him on.
Yeah.
Talk about his inability. And Donald Trump Jr. did that very well last night. He straight up in part of his speech asked the question, who's running the country, right? Like very pertinent Republican conservative talking point, which is Grandpa Joe is insane. He's in bed at 4:00 and okay, great.
The coronavirus.
Right where, yeah, he's got the coronavirus now, exactly where you should be. But why are you attacking this guy's economy? Because that's you're losing.
Yeah, that's one of his strongest wins.
You're losing on that. So
yeah.
I don't understand the messaging on this.
Well, I think that the problem for a lot of these guys and watching them talk is that they're just all saying the same thing. They're all it's almost like there's like in the back room, there's almost like just a whiteboard with the talking points on it. And whether those talking points are wrong or right or not even wrong, right, but factual, it doesn't even matter. Hey, we're going to play the hits, and these are the hits. Hey, the economy sucks. The stock market sucks. All the illegals are killing people. You're being forced to get vaccine. Like all these talking points, and you're right. Like Fox News fact checking a Republican candidate, like is wild.
And the thing that they were fact checking on was, is your life better today than it was 4 years ago? Because that's what he spent 10 minutes, Donald Trump Jr., saying, 4 years ago, our lives were better. 4 years ago, it was 2020. We were in the height of the pandemic. It crippled Donald Trump's presidency without question. 4 years ago. And I think MSNBC actually got on it and said exactly 4 years ago, like July 17th of 2020, Donald Trump actually did a press conference where he said in 2 weeks, the pandemic will be over and we're going to be back to normal life. It wasn't over for 2 more years. And the economy and like, it's just the wrong messaging. You're in a place where they just tried and that's the other thing that I thought Fox, the guy on Fox last night, and I don't know his name because I never watch Fox, but the guy on Fox last night was like, who's they? They keep talking. Donald Trump Jr. kept saying they. Who is they? Say Joe Biden. Say Chuck Schumer. Don't say they. Call them out by name. Because all night last night, all of the speakers at the convention, they. Who's they? Like, you guys have this platform all to yourself. And your messaging is wrong. And man, if you're a Republican and not even a Republican, if you are a Donald Trump supporter, his speech has to be rock solid.
Yeah.
Because the polling that is coming out during this convention, he is not seeing a bump. And that's, if you're a Trump supporter and a Trump voter, that's terrifying. He doesn't have like a 10 or 8, 6, 4. He's got a 2-point lead.
Which is margin of error
over Joe Biden.
Yeah.
He's trailing Kamala Harris by 1 point, which is better because he was trailing by 4 before the assassination attempt. Now it's 1. His speech has to be really good. And the issue is, I think Don Jr.'s speech was not great. It was not great. It just was one of those things where you have all these issues with Joe Biden that you can talk about, and you're picking on his economy, which is the last thing you want to be picking on.
And I feel like the Republicans, I feel like tried to pick up on the strategy of, hey, like, let's come back together as Americans. Like, let's unify. Like, let's be, we're not Democrat and Republican. We're Americans. We're, coming back together. And I didn't mind that strategy at all, because I do agree, like, we need to get back to that. We got to stop doing this partisan nonsense and, we all hate each other. Like, we got to get away from that and get back to being Americans and having camaraderie. But the problem is that in the speeches, I feel like they didn't capitalize on that, because they weren't good enough on what you're talking about, like calling these people out by name and complaining about the issues.
And again, what's the other thing that they slapped Don Jr. in the bag for? Americans aren't making money. Americans, the wages are less. My guy, 4 years ago, the average American worker was making 22% less than they are making today. Is some of that the pandemic? Sure. But why didn't you say that? You said 4 years ago that your life was better. No, it wasn't. You were making less money. You had less jobs. Inflation was starting to climb because of supply chain issues, right? Like, it's the wrong messaging. Pick on Joe Biden for being old. Pick on Joe Biden for screwing up and saying that the vice president is Donald Trump. Pick on him for not being able to put a sentence together. All of that is fair play. But you can't go back. And I think this is one of the things that so many people are picking on. Right now, Donald Trump Jr. last night also messaging that Donald Trump was the president of the little guy, the garden variety American, who got fucked by his new tax policy, who's paying more tax because of the new tax code that Trump introduced. And so you're messaging that the little guy's better off. But the big guy, the rich guy, the 1% is who benefited from that tax cut. So stop talking about the economy. Start talking about Joe Biden. And if you want to attack his policies, hey, I'm all for it. If you want to attack the issues that he's failed at, mainly securing our borders, absolutely get after that. Joe Biden has failed miserably. You want to talk about the withdrawal from Afghanistan? Absolutely. Absolutely. But saying that the world is less secure and that the only reason that there's war around the world last night, Donald Trump Jr. said the only reason that there's war around the world is because Joe Biden is the president. And it's just factually inaccurate.
Yeah.
It's factually inaccurate.
Yeah.
So I really, if you are a Trump supporter, you need this Donald Trump speech to be.
Yeah, but I don't think that people, and maybe I'm wrong, this is what it seems to be to me. I don't think that people look at like the masses in our country. And I'm not saying the folks at the convention, but like your average Joe American trying to figure out what's better for them right now. I don't think they look at Don Jr. as like a credible guy. They look at him as dude's son who's going to say everything positive and everything negative about Biden.
But what did CNN point out about Don Jr.? CNN rightly pointed out, who's the guy that has orchestrated this convention? Don Jr. Who's the guy that put pretty much the new power structure at the Republican National Committee in place? Don Jr. Who's the guy that was in charge of putting Amber Rose, who gave one of the worst speeches I think we've ever seen, a porn star? Don Jr. And now this is a guy who's giving a speech attacking Joe Biden on his economy and on crime and on saying that illegal immigration is responsible for the murder rate in our country. And you just can't back that up by numbers.
Yeah.
So again, I just say, Don Jr. to the garden variety American, I agree with you. I don't think people understand it. Yeah. If you are a Republican supporter and a conservative, you understand that he has a powerful place behind the scenes pulling strings in the Republican Party that by any stretch now is the party of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So this Donald Trump speech
got to be good.
And the other thing that's a little concerning, and I don't know how you get away from this, the Democrats are going to run the video of Donald Trump falling asleep last night over and over and over again. And it's tough, dude.
Yeah.
You're banging on Joe Biden for going to bed at 4:00, they say. He's not going to bed at 4:00. But you're ripping Joe Biden for being old and falling asleep early at 8:00. Donald Trump is listening to his son speak and he's falling asleep. Like, you just can't have that.
Yeah.
You can't have that. You can't have him in a moment where Donald Trump Jr. is giving one of the most important speeches of this convention, and they have a 2-box, and you're literally watching Donald Trump.
Like, he's got the sleepies.
He's trying to, and you can see him. And then he nods off. And then, luckily for Donald Trump, like 3 seconds later, the crowd roared and he woke up and oddly stood up. It's the video where he oddly stands up and everybody then stood up with him. Dude, like, those are the things that are going to get you.
Yeah.
No, it was not during a prayer. We're not talking about so they were praying in the middle of Don Jr.'s speech, MAGA boy? They weren't. Donald Trump fell asleep on the last 2 nights. Like, it's not even an arguable.
Yeah.
You can see the passion when he is bashing the Republicans. Little different when he's talking about the Democrats. Who are you? Are you talking about me? We haven't even gotten to the Democratic convention yet. And speaking of the Democrats, now there's this situation with Joe Biden that I think the assassination attempt on Donald Trump was a gift to Joe Biden, in that it stopped everybody from talking about how fucking old the guy is and that he needs to not be the nominee anymore. Well, now the issue is, that all went away, and now everybody's off the Biden train in the Democratic Party. And I think you've missed it now. I think you've missed it now, because you're going to your convention, and I think mutiny's probably strong. You're in a situation now where I don't know that you have a candidate that party can unify behind.
Oh yeah. And what's going to happen when you go to, to vote in your delegates, cast your delegates? I mean, are we going to see issues? Are we going to see that states are just simply going to cast them for another candidate? I mean, because if it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like, if another candidate is going to be put forward, that's how they would have to do it. Like, that's how you go about doing it. And so my thing is, okay, cool. The Republican National Convention goes down
a month from today.
Yeah, the RNC goes down. They say what they say. Don's going to speak. All right, you kind of know what to expect out of those guys. Like, I'm not really shocked by
the Trump playbook is not a
like,
secret.
you know what you're getting there, and that's fine, right? That's fine. But for the Democrats, I think this convention is going to be much more, awkward's the wrong word, but just kind of edgy. It's going to have a different energy.
You have a month.
Yeah.
I think the convention starts August 19th. And I don't know how you fix it. I mean, if you look at this whole cycle of Biden's downfall from the moment that debate happened until today, I don't feel like his public speaking has improved. It just is what it's always been.
Yeah, it's not going to improve.
We were talking about this 4 years ago when he was running. He's not an eloquent speaker anymore, and he really never has been. And for those of you who don't know, he battled terrible speech impediments as a kid. And I think we go through this arc in life where, hey, you're young, you're an adult, and then you regress into old age, which makes you young mentally. You can see that he is just not, he's not that guy anymore. Well, and it's why I tell you, there's no candidate for us to vote for on either side of it.
Dude, the situation on the Democratic Party is begging for someone to go and take it by the throat and just say, hey, I'm the guy, I'm the candidate, we're doing this. Like,
which the Republicans, to their credit, did by selecting J.D. Vance.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what J.D. Vance represents. He represents new blood, young blood, the next guy to carry on the torch from Donald Trump. That's what J.D. Vance represents.
And he also represents a massive hypocrite when it comes to Donald Trump. So good luck getting over that.
Yeah, and I would think they're prepared for that, though. I mean, it is, because there's nobody that is going to sugarcoat what J.D. Vance had said about Donald Trump. It's very difficult to do that. It is. I mean, the awful things that J.D. Vance said about Donald Trump, whether you agree with him or not, doesn't matter. He said some really bad shit about Donald Trump, and the Democrats are already running ads for it, and as they should. You knew they were going to do that, but there's not a J.D. Vance right now I don't see that there's a J.D. Vance for the Democrats to just all of a sudden plug in.
Yeah.
Your only real viable alternative is Kamala Harris. And I think she's a flawed candidate. I mean, some of the decisions in policy making that she put forward, I think she's going to have a difficult time with law enforcement because of some of the things she did in California. Not supporting a death penalty against a guy that was accused of murdering a police officer really hurt her with police unions. She still won in a landslide, but it hurt her with police unions. And I think the union vote, which right now is behind Donald Trump, and I thought it was really interesting when the president of the Teamsters, and I didn't understand this about the RNC, why they did this. The president of the Teamsters gave a speech at the Republican National Convention criticizing Donald Trump and the Republicans and not endorsing them, not endorsing Donald Trump, not throwing the money and the votes behind him. Why did you do that? I think that's one of the most puzzling decisions. And we'll see how that vote goes, because I think and if you haven't heard the latest on Joe Biden, now you're looking at the Democratic leaders in the Senate and the House have both, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer have both gone to Joe Biden and said, hey, listen, you're in trouble here, dude. Because now Chuck Schumer, by some reports, essentially told Joe Biden, donors have said they're not giving you money anymore. And your supporters, your main supporters, and the people that carried you through the Midwest last time around, the unions, are withholding their endorsement. And they're not going to endorse you as the president as the candidate for the Democrats for president. It's over.
Yeah.
It's over. And what are you hearing out of Joe Biden's camp now? Well, if the doctor tells me I have an issue, I'll step aside. Now we're starting to see cracks in I'm the guy, I'm not stepping aside. A month from now, he's not going to be the nominee. I
can't believe it.
But it has to be today. It can't every day that goes by, you're losing momentum. And it is true that they continue to raise money. He raised $38 million the 2 days after the debate.
Well, because the selling point's going to be that hey, we're, like if you're talking to a donor, right? If you're in Harris's camp to be the nominee and you're talking to a donor, you're saying, hey, there's a process playing out, and you're trying to sell the fact that she's going to eventually, step forward. And they are trying to do it in a responsible fashion. That's how you're trying to sell this to donors. And the hard part is, and this is what you can't get away from if you're the Democrats, I don't care who you're talking to, your party looks unorganized and looks like a mess. That's the problem. That's where I see you paying a price at the ballot box. Because if someone, again, your average Joe American who is not like plugged in politically, they're that person that is just doing their job. They got a family, trying to provide, they're living life. Yeah. And what are they seeing in the headlines? Just the headlines, because they ain't got time to do all this digging. What are they saying? Okay, well, we got Donnie over here. We know that he's the guy over here, and we know kind of what he stands for and what he's doing. But what do we have over here? Because we've got Biden, who like, I guess they don't support anymore, but also Harris might step forward. So you don't like, I just feel like for your average Joe American, the Democrats have this massive question mark in like bold Sharpie that people don't like.
I agree.
Like there's nothing there right now. And that's why, like, yeah, this has to take place quickly, but it also can't take place too quickly, because you're going to have to sell, hey, as a party, we got together and made a responsible decision. And that process took some time.
And I think if it's Kamala Harris, unions are a very interesting beast, because I think union workers, and it's not a secret on the show, I think you guys know this, I am very pro-union. I believe in worker rights. I believe in protecting the right of workers to make a fair wage, to have fair time off, family and medical leave. Like, I'm a big believer in it. And I look at Kamala Harris and what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done for unions. It's hard to get away from that, especially when you nominated a guy in J.D. Vance who has routinely voted against and put forward legislation that hurts unions and hurts workers, I think that's a very big issue. And I think it is going to be interesting to see where the union money ends up in this. Because right now it's with Joe Biden. I don't think anybody even questions that. But he's not going to be your candidate, and he can't be. And I, again, just asked the question. We have a month left until the Democratic convention. How significant is Donald Trump's speech?
I think it's hugely significant.
Massive.
I think that
Massive.
that, this is the first time that he's going to be
massive.
Speaking, in front of these people, and like obviously this battle cry for fighting and like making sure that people like, because obviously the one of the leading talking points was, hey, this dude got shot and immediately stood up and wanted to defend the country and represent, and that's all cool. I have no problem with that because he did do that. He deserves credit. You got your ear shot off, and your first reaction was to pump your fist and pump up the crowd. Like, he does deserve credit for that. But I think the problem is that the Democrats just aren't giving Americans much of a choice right now. That's the problem. I have mostly qualms with Donnie as a president. Like, there's a lot of issues that he represents that Republicans are never going to talk about. And if you're the guy that drinks the Republican Kool-Aid, you're probably not going to be happy when you get called out for all the dumb shit you guys say that's just not true about like immigration or all that stuff. Like, it's all out there in the public view. Anyone can find it. Please make educated decisions. But the problem is that I can't sit here and then be like, oh, well, this Democratic candidate that we don't have looks really good. Like, no name on the ballot is looking really good right now. Like, that's the problem. I wouldn't even be excited to vote for Harris. Like,
but again, totally. Again, I just keep saying this.
Like,
I'm not a Trump guy, and I'm certainly not a Biden guy. Who do you vote for?
Yeah.
As Americans, I'm a 51-year-old American, and I don't have a candidate. I don't have a party. I don't have somebody that inspires me that's like, okay, that's a vision I can get behind. Or, hey, that's a person. And again, I go back to the unions. Like, I look at the labor stuff, and I say to myself, do we really want pro-corporate people running the economy in this country? I think you need somebody who understands that the American worker has to be the priority.
Yeah.
To the point about J.D. Vance, the AFL-CIO president came out yesterday and said, no, there's not a chance that we can support J.D. Vance on this ticket, because J.D. Vance, again, has routinely voted for corporate big dollars. So the question is, if you look at where we are as Americans and you look at where all of us are, do you want to support big corporation, or do you want to push the rise of the American worker again, or restart the middle class motor?
Yeah.
That's what I'm after. Because that's where I am. I'm a guy that's in the middle class. I want to restart the middle class motor so that people my age and their kids can afford houses, can afford education. That's the thing that really worries me is I at some point, I think as Americans, we'll come back together. We'll unify again on some level, some way, somehow. But will we ever be able to afford houses on the regular again?
No.
Will we ever be able to, fight the battle of, okay, well, we got to pay more to the American worker, which means cost on things is going to go up. Instead of pointing the finger, it's your fault. It's our fault. Our fast food workers are making $20 an hour. How do you get out of that? And then you start looking at again, the Teamsters, the AFL-CIO, like the big union people in this country haven't picked a candidate to support because they're not going to support J.D. Vance. And I think a lot of people are skeptical of the tax code. So I think they're having trouble supporting Donald Trump. And they're not going to support Joe Biden because Joe Biden's not going to be there.
To which my point is, the Democrats, however messy and jacked this whole situation is, still have a window. And I'm curious what they will do with it. Because again, it for the 1,000th time today, for me, it's not a Dem versus Republican thing. It is a merits of your argument thing. Like, I know who Donald Trump is as a candidate. I know who JD Vance is as a VP. I get it. I understand your talking points. I understand who you're going to screw and not screw, and what you're telling us versus what you're going to do. I get all that. But what I don't know is just how bad is the Democratic candidate going to be? I mean, if you can, the only way forward for the Democrats, the only way the Democrats have a chance in this thing is if they get this transition right. And the day that that Joe steps aside and the new candidate, I guess Harris, steps forward, assuming it's her.
I think you have to assume it's her.
Assuming it's her.
What does she if it's her, what does she stand on, though?
I think she stands on that she can kick the shit out of anyone in a debate, and that she's going to basically take Joe Biden's principles and be just kind of like, if I was her, I would be saying, hey, we're going to take what Joe did and we're going to go this direction. Like, we're going to, and obviously it's case by case or issue by issue, topic by topic. But that's the fundamental that I would be following. I would do what he did to win and just amplify those things.
What I think she will have to she's going to have to really have a first 5 to 10 days. Because I wouldn't we all agree? I think it is Kamala Harris. I don't know who else.
I don't know who else it would be.
I don't know who her number 2 will be, but as a strong Black woman, and really, I shouldn't even say that, as a strong mixed multicultural woman, with a very interesting track record on crime, because she has been very hard line. Her first act has to be to reach out to the police union. She has to get into law enforcement and make it clear, I support you guys. I love you guys. I am going to do X, Y, and Z to support you. Because being a police officer and a first responder in this country today is very difficult. And the first thing you're going to hear about is that she did not support the death penalty against a cop killer. That I guarantee you. And if you're a Republican and that's not in your playbook on Kamala Harris, you're out your goddamn mind, because that's going to be the single biggest thing they're going to punch her with. I agree with you. I think I am here for a debate with her. And if she winds up being the top of the ticket, I'm disappointed we're not going to get JD Vance versus Kamala Harris. Yeah. Because she is.
But I think if you're the Republicans, she can kick the shit out of Donald Trump in a debate. Like,
I don't think you'll see it. Donald Trump there's no win for him in a debate. Not with her. His track record on women, his track record.
But I'm just saying, when you look at the Democrats' position, if Donald Trump, if it is her and Donald Trump refuses to debate her, that's the Democrats gaining. That's the Democrats saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. We want to debate Donald Trump. We want to do it. Let's hey, we took care of our business, Americans. We got old head out of the White House. Here's the candidate that can step forward given the circumstances. We want to show her off to the world. And that's why I'm saying we have yet to see Donald Trump debate somebody or just go up against somebody who's younger than him, who is in a different place in life, and actually is in what I would call a fair fight. And I do think that, hate it if you want to, her being a woman is something she's going to have to get over. We've never had a female president. That's a big deal for a lot of people.
But I don't even think it is. The word electability is a ridiculous word. The popular vote has never meant anything. Donald Trump lost the popular vote every time he's run.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be able to go to swing states. The Ohios, the Pennsylvanians, the Michigans, Wisconsins, Floridas, Texas. You have to be able to sell Americans. You have to be able to go to those states that are so critical. She'll win the West Coast. I don't think there's any doubt about it. She's wildly popular in California. I think she will win Arizona. Can she go to Michigan and win? Can she go to Ohio and Pennsylvania and campaign and win? That's a huge question. And I don't know the answer to that, because she's going to have to show us what she is as a debater, because her results have been mixed. She's going to have to show us what her messaging on crime will be, because it's been mixed.
Yeah.
What is she going to say about border security? It's their single biggest weakness, because instantly old man Biden goes away. And what is she going to say about border security? What is she going to say about fighting for wars? What is she going to say about the withdrawal from Afghanistan? Because their foreign policy has been that's not a great way to start your foreign policy. I just don't know.
But for her, I mean, if you're her, are you not saying, hey, that wasn't my foreign policy? That was Joe's foreign policy.
Yeah, you can't. That's. I don't think you can do that. You were in the room. You were the vice president at the time the decision was made. They're going to hang that around you.
Yeah,
that's going to be an anvil around your neck.
Yeah.
They're going to try and sink you with that.
Yeah,
and she will be prepared. If it is Kamala Harris, she is, because really I don't know that they have another choice because of campaign finance laws. But this will be the first time that she is the one that is getting all the support, all the preparation, all of it. And she is going to have to really ask some very difficult questions, answer some very difficult questions. And I don't know that there's a candidate there. I truly don't. I think you need to name her and you need to put her in front of some people, and let's see how she does in a press conference. Let's see how she does at a campaign stop. Let's put her in a town hall, ask questions. Stop with this bullshit where you put her on the radio and you demand they ask the questions you want asked. Put her in an environment where you have prepared her, but you don't know what the questions are, and let's see how she does. Let her campaign. Give her enough rope to put herself in trouble. I think that's the only route that you have, because the Republicans have a playbook that's long-standing and they're running it.
Yeah.
And they're playing to their base, and their base loves it. And again, I go back to the bandages on the ear thing. This is Donald Trump's party, man. And he's running his playbook in this convention. While it's not been stellar, I don't think anybody would agree or say that it's been a stellar convention. You have a chance to call this a home run if Donald Trump knocks it out of the park with his speech.
Yeah.
Real quick, before we leave, did you guys see this situation with this new shooter, information about this guy? So it started with this picture right here. Tell me what you see in this picture. Well, Monty, I see a cell phone, I see a battery, and I see, is that a garage door opener? That's not a garage door opener, friends. That is a remote control transmitter. And why is that particular transmitter so concerning? Number one, it's federally regulated. Not everybody has access to it. Number two, it is a sophisticated piece of equipment because it has one job. Its only job is to send an electrical pulse through created, manufactured explosives. That's its only job. And you might be like, well, the guy was a wingnut. He had explosives in his car. We knew that. Okay. Well, let's delve into that little gray box a little more. There's only one kind of scenario that gray box is used for. And here it is. I went in my workshop or wherever I did, put a bunch of chemicals together, and made an explosive compound. I ran electricity through that explosive compound that I plugged, caps into, blasting caps, detonating caps, and I blew something up remotely with that gray box. That's what that gray box is used for. Here's the problem with that. This kid has no ability to do that. This kid at any stage of, and this is what the FBI and I think pretty much everybody who knows what that box is reporting. The chemistry and science background you would have to just mix the compound to make that explosive. You're going to blow yourself up just on that. You're dead. Forget it. It's over. Then let's say that you somehow were able to make that explosive compound. Then you have to know how to run electrical current through it without, part two, blowing yourself up while doing it. Then you have to know how to take a blasting cap, plug it into that compound, connect it to the electricity you ran through it without blowing yourself up. Because apparently, unbeknownst to me, where most bomb makers get blown up is when you put the blasting cap into the explosive and it takes the current. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to blow yourself up. He's a 20-year-old kid who has no upper education and has no chemistry background, no military background, and no access to that detonator, to explosive compounds or blasting caps, which are all federally regulated. So where did he get that? How did he get that?
Well, sounds like you're saying that he knows somebody.
Does he have a Facebook page, an Instagram account, a TikTok? Does he have a Twitter, X? He doesn't. He's got one thing. He has a gaming app, a gaming account on an app. And he allegedly wrote, they are not confirmed, they're working on it. He allegedly wrote in that gaming forum, my coming out party is July 13th. We'll see if that's actually the truth. But it should terrify you that that cat had that gray box and those explosives in his car, because somebody helped him do that. And the question now is, who helped him do that?
And it's interesting. I know, earlier in the week we were talking about how this guy belonged to a gun club, and he was around, he was around people who, handled weapons, knew their way around it, were comfortable with it. That was in their culture. So it begs the question, like, yeah, who did he know? Because I'm guessing he probably met someone through there, or you don't just run into that person.
Was
randomly.
it somebody at the gun club? That's been floated. My question is, like most people's question, if he'd met somebody at the gun club, we'd have heard about that. He belonged, by the way, to a gun club. The gun he used in the attempt was his father's, bought it 11 years ago. They belonged to a gun club, which is self-described. I think they use the term exclusive gun club, one of the best gun clubs, whatever. They belong to a gun club, and he was there shooting regularly. And I think you'd have known about that. Mm-hmm. My biggest concern is, let's say, the Iranians, because the Iranians, now the Secret Service and the FBI are saying the Iranians have had an open hit on Donald Trump. And there was a security alert 2 weeks ago, which is why the Secret Service and the Biden administration upped Donald Trump's Secret Service detail. So was this part of that? Well, we now know also the kid was using an encrypted phone.
See, again, these are not things that are readily available.
And while this kid was described as somebody that was smart, he had no training in his background for that stuff. So that's a little concerning. Well, now we know he also searched all of the dates of campaign and rallies for Donald Trump and for the Democrats. He researched dates of the Republican National Convention and the Democratic National Convention. What was this kid planning to do? Because we know that he didn't hate Republicans or hate Democrats. He hated politicians. His parents and his schoolmates have all said that. He had a disdain for politicians. I don't think we'll ever know, because they have no idea what his motive was. They have no idea.
Yeah.
And this video that has been created out there on the interwebs that you can see of, where that shot came from, the guy knew what he was doing with that rifle. He knew how to operate that rifle. And I don't think we've even begun to get answers to what the hell the Secret Service and the local police were doing, because they knew he was there. They had warning.
The timeline that's come out is
not
rough.
Good, because the local guys waited far too long to go to the Secret Service, who then waited far too long to take action. You got to wonder, like, did you just not take this seriously? You had photos of him. People saw him before he ever got on his bicycle and rode up to that fence. People saw him and said, he's suspicious. Let me take a picture of him.
Yeah.
And the local police were circulating that picture, and they sent it to the Secret Service, who circulated it to their people. And they watched him. They knew he was there. Why did you not detain him?
Yeah.
Why did you not arrest him? How did he ever get up on that roof at 141 yards with a long barrel.
Yeah, I do think that the question of, like, as more comes out about this, the problem is that now the kid's dead. So you don't get any insight into, like, hey, what were you trying to do? What was your plan? Like, and the reason he's dead is because, the Secret Service and the local police didn't execute on protection. If you'd got to him before the roof, or even on the roof, if that cop had been more prepared, we'd be having a different conversation.
That story was confirmed. So there was a cop who climbed up that ladder and jumped off when he saw what the kid was doing, which is really interesting in and of itself. But yeah, who made those explosives, man? Where did he get the deck caps? Where did he get the did he make them at all on his own? I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
He'd have blown himself up. And where was he making this shit? It's not like you can make it in the basement. By what people are saying, the smell on its own is horrendous. Like, you would notice it. There was a guy on MSNBC or NBC, maybe, with Lester Holt. I don't remember. There was a guy basically saying if it was in the garage of the family home, it would have permeated to the house. It's so pungent.
Strong.
It's a strong odor, these chemicals. So where did this come from?
Yeah.
I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I think it is.
What I do know is we need to stop discounting just how persistent people are in doing what they want to do.
And this more honesty right here. An average hunter could make a shot from 150 yards. This tells me you know nothing about shooting an AR style rifle. Do you know how difficult that shot is? To be accurate with it when you're talking about, you just don't know what you're talking about, man. With all due lack of respect, an average hunter is.
So first of all, when you're hunting, you're out in the wilderness. You don't have the pressure of the Secret Service bearing down on you.
And you're relaxed, and you're probably sitting in a.
And you're not trying to kill a human being, number one. So that's the first difference. So don't talk to me about an average hunter. Take that garbage and throw it somewhere else.
You have, and the munitions he was using has an incredible variable rate. The release from the barrel, the spin out of the barrel, that thing's moving. Well, I think they said that bullet was moving 3,700 feet per second.
Yeah.
Per second. And I'd also remind you, he hit the target. There is a simulation of what he would have seen. And I don't know who did it, but the simulation essentially says that Donald Trump turning his head saved his life. Like, you just don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Nobody's taken that weapon to shoot deer, guy. That the variables in that atmosphere, the sweat, the nervousness, the nerves, your heartbeat, the munitions that he chose are not everyday easy
think about
shot.
The cop situation. I mean, the cop just rolled up on you on the roof and jumped off. You've got maybe 5 seconds, maybe, to make the shot. And you're going to sit here and tell me that this situation for this kid, and I can't believe I'm sitting here having to defend this kid's situation, but you're going to tell me that the situation he found himself in trying to assassinate a former president and a presidential candidate is the same as you and your boys half drunk out in the woods with a bolt action?
When you are clearly mentally deranged?
Come on, dude. Be better, dude. This is why we don't read a lot of your stuff, man.
And he said, my other question is his finances, because they also said the explosives are a pretty penny. Yeah. They're hugely expensive.
That's what I'm saying. Nothing suggests this kid did this on his own. Everything suggests that this kid was just the messenger, that there is something bigger at play, that I like, hey kid, you hate politicians. We know that. Here's a bomb. Here's the remote. And here's an AR. Go do your job.
That's what's scary.
Yeah.
That's what's scary. And that gun, by the way, was in their house since, I think, 2011. So he had access to it and he shot it regularly.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at what an AR is, and it throws out small rounds in a semi-automatic fashion.
Yeah.
And they travel over 3,000 feet per second. I mean, you know how difficult that shot is? I don't care what anybody says. Do not compare it to a bolt action rifle. Come on. This is a very good question. The kid didn't have the resources to build that explosive.
Yeah.
So just keep your eye on that. I think it's a very interesting question about what his background is and who he leveraged or who leveraged him. That's the question I want to know. Always good to speak with you. Thanks for being here. Always fun. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out the door. Until tomorrow, say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.